Mr. Speaker. I find myself in the invidious position of having agreed with everything that the Right Honourable Member for Rushcliffe has said, virtually, and virtually everything that's been said by my honourable friends on this side, who are intending to vote against second reading tomorrow evening, but differ from them in one aspect only, and that is that I don't think it is possible as a democratically elected Member of Parliament that entered into the referendum having accepted that we were going to have that referendum and then saying to the public that somehow I know better and I'm not going to honour the outcome of that referendum. So I will vote in favour of triggering Article 50 tomorrow night. But I will do so also because I don't want the party opposite, every time I challenge them over the process and every time I challenge them to come back to this House to be accountable for what they are negotiating on behalf of this country, to turn round and say that somehow I'm looking to second-guess the outcome of the referendum. Because they must be accountable for what they are doing to this House. And there are some questions about whether the members of the government are acting in the best interest. We had the spat with the Italian economics minister over whether Italy would be hurt by selling less Prosecco to the UK, where he turned around and said that we may sell a little bit less Prosecco, but I'll be doing that to one country, you'll be selling less to 27 countries. We had the comments of the Foreign Secretary over the freedom of movement as a founding principle of the European Union, where he used a very unfortunate word in an interview with a Czech newspaper, but he calls it a total myth and nonsense to say it's a founding principle. He may well believe that that's true, but that is not the way to go about negotiating with people who are going to have an important say over future trade agreements for this country. And then, when it came to the meeting about the outcome of the election, the American presidential election, he said that he spoke down to the people who were attending a meeting specially convened to discuss that by saying, I would respectfully say to my beloved European friends and colleagues, what sort of language is that to use when you're talking down to the very people you want to be cooperating with you in future negotiations? He also went on to describe Donald Trump as a liberal guy from New York, but he may be well be rethinking that one. Now, so the government has clearly shown that it's not to be trusted with these negotiations without oversight from this House of Commons. So we have to have a say in this process. So I'll be voting to trigger Article 7, and I've heard speeches from the benches opposite where people have said Parliament Article 50, but I've heard speeches from the members opposite who have said that they want to have a say over the process here in Parliament. So I hope we'll see them voting on amendments to ensure that that actually takes place in the debates that we have over the 3 days next week. And I've heard all the talk about a brave new world that's going to open up for us under the World Trade Organization. But people don't seem to be respecting the fact that there are rules and regulations and tariffs to be negotiated with the World Trade Organization. In fact, it's highly likely that the easiest way into the World Trade Organization is to take as a package all the agreements we have under the EU and adopt them under the World Trade Organization. It's the easiest way to possibly avoid all sorts of challenges to the UK, which, incidentally, we don't have the teams of lawyers and accountants and officials who are used to dealing with these sorts of negotiations to act on our behalf. So we're opening up all these negotiations without having the expertise in place. And it's a question that's been asked several times of the government about building up these departments and the expertise. Where are the experts that are used to negotiating on behalf of the UK? Because they're all in Europe. They've been doing it at a European level, and they're not here. And we're going to have to do that at several levels, over Article 50, over future trade agreements, over trade agreements through the WTO. And what's going to happen with those countries who have vested interests, like Spain, who might want to use this vulnerability of the UK to open up negotiations about Gibraltar? Or if we go into the World Trade Organization, would Argentina start to challenged agreements with the UK in order to open up negotiations about the future of the Falklands Islands. This is the reality of international trade agreements. This is the real world that we're going to be moving into. And the idea that we can just fall out of Europe and fall into the World Trade Organisation and there are absolutely no consequences is folly. And that is why this House of Commons has got to have a say over the process, and it's got to scrutinise in detail what this government is doing on behalf of this country. And we as members of Parliament have a duty to do that. And the government should not stand in the way of democratic accountability in this House on the guise of saying you're trying to renegotiate the outcome of the referendum. That is not true, but that means that they can't avoid accountability. So I hope the government will accept an amendment on that basis so that we do bring sovereignty back here to this House of Commons.
Michael.